Dear students and viewers, good afternoon everyone. This is Ridwan, your teacher of English, and I've come here today with a very important topic. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about transformation of simple, complex and compound sentence. This one. Though he is poor, he is happy. This is a complex sentence, right? So to make it simple sentence, we have to go through some procedures. The first one, we have to make this complex sentence. We have to make this subordinate clause a phrase, and the phrase has to begin with either despite or in spite of. Okay, I'm using here in spite of. You can use despite also. In spite of. Okay, you have to omit though, or although, or even though. Even though is also possible. There you can see even though also. Then in spite of. Okay, in place of subordinate conjunction though, we have to use in spite of. Or we can use despite also. But never use of after despite. Always remember that. In spite of, then as here says subject, if we use subject, then we have to use the possessive adjective of the pronoun. The possessive adjective of the pronoun. What's the possessive adjective of he? His. Okay. Then he changes to his. In spite of his. We know that this is a possessive adjective, and after this, as this is noun modifier, we have to use noun. So as there's no specific noun form of be verb, it would be being. His being. Okay. Then in spite of his being, am is was word changes to being. Then after be verb we use adjective, so it would be in spite of his being poor. In spite of his being poor, put comma, he is happy. We will not make any changes for the principal clause. The principal clause should remain unchanged. He is happy. Now this is a simple sentence. In spite of his being poor, he is happy. There's another option. You could write in spite of or in spite of. Okay, we have omitted though, although, or even though, and we have used in spite of. Then now we are not using the subject. So in spite of it is also possible in spite of being poor. In spite of being poor, he is happy. It's also possible. Here we have not used the possessive adjective. Then or in spite of his. Now we are not using be verb. We are not using be verb as this is possessive adjective. So it should change into noun form. No, this is not the okay. Poor needs to be changed into noun form. What's the noun form of poor? Poverty. In spite of his poverty, comma, he is happy. It's also possible. In spite of his poverty, he is happy. Poor is adjective, poverty is noun. In spite of his poverty, in spite of word despite plus possessive adjective, then noun form. We have omitted being here, be verb, where you can write in spite of, in spite of, in spite of, in spite of, in spite of poverty, in spite of poverty, comma, he is happy. We have omitted possessive adjective here. Okay, let's revise once the four options. In spite of his being poor, he is happy. Then you can write in spite of being poor, he is happy. In spite of his poverty, he is happy. Or in spite of poverty, or in spite of poverty, he is happy. Here, so you can change this complex sentence into simple one in these four ways. You can change the complex sentence into simple one. In spite of, always remember you must use of after in spite of. Don't forget that. After in spite, use of. But when you use despite in place of in spite of, then it would be despite his being poor, he is happy. Or despite being poor, he is happy. Here his has been left out. The word despite his poverty, despite poverty. Okay. Now I think it's now been clear and you can understand. Now it has to be changed into compound sentence. We know that a compound sentence, in a compound sentence, we actually join two simple sentences or two independent clauses with a coordinating conjunction. And here, as we use these subordinating conjunctions, this preposition, or this coordinating conjunction, we use these words interchangeably. Then here in the compound sentence we will use but, or, yet. So let's make the complex compound